Welcome to Two Souls Podcast, a podcast to shift, impact, empower, and disrupt your consciousness, ultimately allowing you to thrive in this human experience. Now here are your hosts, Amber Megenhauser and Angela Blaha. Hey Amber, how are you?
Fantastic. How about you?
Good. I'm really good. So today, I believe we should talk about intuition because you've had a recent
Awesome.
intuition opening, a third eye opening, and I'd really like to dive deeper into the experience. So, we've
Okay.
always talked about, and I always have this question of how do we know what's intuition and what's the mind? So, what was your recent experience about with that?
I feel like, um, I don't want to say I didn't trust my intuition, but sometimes you would have these hits that come in and I'm just like, oh, that's just my mind or that's just my ego. And I never really, it wasn't that I didn't trust it, but I almost couldn't tell the difference of what was what. And recently I I signed up for this class, and ever since I hit the submit button on this class, like everything in me has changed. I have gone through like so many upgrades, and my awareness has just completely skyrocketed since then. And so I feel like I'm just so much more aware of all the stuff that's coming in, and just listening to my own intuition. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what that is. Or, oh, that's why that happened. And I trust it now, where before I think I always wanted to kind of second guess what was coming in.
So that's a good point. So, how does your intuition talk to you? Does it talk to you in your same voice? Does it use a different voice?
It uses the same voice, and it's always a lot. If I ask a question, okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
just use like a stupid example. So the other day, um, I was I've been making some ice cream cakes at the Scoop, and all of a sudden the ice cream started looking different when it came out, and I was like, well, what the hell? Why is this different? And immediately it showed me that we have this like plug that goes inside of it, and I was like, okay, put the plug back in it. Well, I didn't really realize like what the plug did. So I had asked my brother-in-law about it, and he was like, oh, well, that plug needs to add air into our ice cream. That's why it looks and tastes the way it does. And I was like, oh, well, I never knew that. Well, of course, that's why my ice cream looked different, because I pulled the plug out because I was running so much through it. Totally makes sense. And so, like, little things like that, where before I never would have trusted that. I just would have looked at it and been like, oh, the plug's not in, and not even thought twice about it. I wouldn't have put the plug in. I wouldn't have paid attention to it. And I was just like, okay. Where now I'm just like, oh, that's what that is. Okay. There's a reason that needs to be in there. I didn't question why it had to be in there. I just immediately put it back in there because it told me to put it back in there.
Right.
So,
So we
like,
get
little
these,
things like that,
yeah.
where I just listen now. Go ahead.
Well, so we get these hints, right, about how to make life easier or how to, in your case, like why it's important to have a plug in there. So we get these hints, but the trick is intuition is these hints and whether or not we pay attention to them or not, because your intuition, your soul self, your highest, your God self, your numinous self, it just wants you to be happy, period. It just wants you to make sense of the world and to like feel free and to be free and to be happy and blissful. When we don't listen to
Yeah.
those hints, those sometimes they come in as big aha moments. Sometimes it's just a connection of the dots, right? And everything makes sense. Like we want it to be these grandiose, big grandeur kinds of ideas and concepts and like we're going to change the world kind of things. But intuition is generally just be happy and this is how you can be happy. And yes, it does come in your own voice. It doesn't speak to you in a, you know, as Merlin or as, I don't know, the genie or, anything like that. It's your own voice. And I think that that's where we get confused.
I completely agree. Like before this class, I felt like it was just me talking to myself. And I never really
Mm-hmm.
looked at it as, oh, that is my intuition telling me this is how life will be simpler if you just do this. And it's these last 2 weeks, they've been total game changer.
Right.
I don't know
So,
what something in me shifted after I took that class that part of my awareness towards my intuition, I looked at it different. I didn't look at it as, oh, I'm just talking to myself, or, oh, that's just my mind trying to tell me something that you're just like, whatever. I don't brush them off no more because I realize, oh, that's my intuition literally making life simpler.
right. So, which class did you take that made it so simple? The one where we got together?
I am taking, well, after we got together at your place, it, that something shifted there, but like 2 weeks before we got together at your place is when I signed up for um my shamanic journeying class.
Mm.
And the day I hit submit on that thing, my like everything in me changed. My energy changed, my demeanor changed, my thoughts changed, like all this stuff within me changed. And it has just keeps growing and growing and growing since I did that. And this class is next weekend, and I cannot wait for it. It is just going to be like life changing.
Well, it already is life changing.
Yeah, it is. And I haven't even begun.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I have,
exactly.
but yeah, you're right. The minute I made
Yeah.
the choice, that's
Well,
exactly what it is. Finally decided and made that choice that this is my next level in life.
hmm, exactly. So, listening to that intuitive hit about push send, pay for the class and push send was the probably that will be more of the aha than the actual class. The class will just be remembering how to actually do shamanic journeying, right? It'll be the remembering of that. The
Yeah,
change
yeah.
literally came when you pushed send. So that was the intuitive hit. That was you saying yes to yourself, to your natural self, and saying, "Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for." And that change that you noticed, like we need to get really clear about um, when the intuition inspires you, because we think it's the class, but it has nothing to do with the class. The class is just going to help you remember how to journey. The change of the intuition or the part
Mm-hmm.
that needs to be very, very clear and very important is when you listened in the first place, when you literally said, okay, I'm ready to be my natural self. That's really what intuition is. It's that those key components that say, look, this is who we naturally are. These are the things that will catapult us into balance. Like we've talked about balance before, right? Like, how do we become balanced in our world today? these are the times when intuition becomes super, it becomes a change factor. And when we can listen to those things and we can feel that, like it was an energetic feeling that you experienced, right?
Yes, completely. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I actually
That's
think I
when,
messaged you that day and I was like,
yes, that's when you know the DNA changes, right? Like you could literally feel a physical change in you. That lets you
yeah,
know that the DNA has opened. Just like when you had the migraine with the third eye, it was a literal, visceral change in the DNA. Those are
yeah,
times when the intuition becomes embodied. That natural, those natural keys or clues that we get in the beginning, listening and then following through, there's a visceral change that happens in the DNA. There's an opening, a releasing, a activation. Like those visceral changes that you feel in the physical form, that's the scientific um, information or research, or that's the clues that you're looking for to make so that you trust those intuitive nudges. Now, some of us don't need the visceralness of it, like the to feel the physical changes, and some of us do. When you practice your intuition so
yeah,
much, like those visceral changes that become less and less and less, I want to say.
yeah. I definitely needed that because I feel like it brought my attention to it. And I was
Hmm.
just like bypassing a few things, you know? And the minute that did happen, yeah, my attention to what was going on was like, okay, I get this.
Right. This is
This
like
makes sense.
yeah. Yeah, so when we're always like, so we're always beating ourselves up because we get sick, or whatever the thing is, or your migraine. It's like, why in the heck did I have this migraine? So we always
Hmm.
sort of like go down that weird path of the ego. But if we actually sit back and say, oh well, this is a DNA change, right? Like the virus.
Yeah,
This is a DNA change. Like the virus that we're experiencing in our world right now is a DNA change. Period. So if we actually
yeah,
started looking at it as that, it changes the whole perspective of death and dying and all the fear mongering. Those kinds of things start to change, and we start to sit back and say, oh, wait, this is intuition. This is an expansion experience. Some of us have to feel the visceralness of it. Some of us have to, some of us are choosing not to feel the visceralness of it. And those are the people who will never ever have a virus or feel the effects of a virus. It'll just be a DNA change, or we'll experience it in some totally different way.
yeah,
The point is to always come back to
yeah.
balance. Mhm. So tell us about your
So
third
just
eye. Like
having
what?
balance.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, tell us about your
Just
third eye
having
experience. Like, what's the difference between um, being able to see the unseen, and are you having that experience already, or is it just sort of the knowings?
um I've had a few experiences, uh, but most of it's knowings. Um,
Mhm.
I think I had some fear about my third eye opening, not knowing what I was going to see.
Mhm.
And that's some things that I've worked on with that because um, I think the mind wants to wrap it around like scary movie crap,
Right, right,
and that's not
exactly.
true. I mean, it's so like, and I'm just like not a scary movie kind of person. I'm just like, nope, I do not watch that kind of crap, you know. So I think that there was some fear there about it opening, and that's why I'm going through some of the physical, just because I did carry that fear. I
Hmm.
didn't realize that till we started talking about this today, but that's exactly what some of that is. When he asked me
Yeah.
if I had fear before, I was just like, no, I don't have fear about that opening. But I guess in a way I kind of did, just because of the stupid movie stuff. Um, but I I don't feel like that is totally happening anymore. I have had a few experiences um, with unseen stuff, but I would love to have way more. Um, I actually am excited for when that is actually just going to be like my normal.
Okay, so let's dive a little bit deeper into this so you don't have fear and don't have to have the experience of the migraine as before. So, if you
Mm-hmm.
want to have more of the unseen, um, like visions, like literal visions, because that's really what the third eye does, is it helps you with remote viewing. Like we've, probably discussed remote viewing before, where you can literally take your consciousness and see my house, or see out into the universe, or whatever you want to do with it. So that's really what the
Mm-hmm.
functions of opening that third eye are, is to see the unseen, being able to move your consciousness throughout other realms of consciousness, about throughout other multiverses, so that you can observe, literally observe, which we've talked about numerously, which helps you to not attach meaning to things. That's in my experience, that's really what the third eye has done for me, is it helps me to see things without having my own training or my own perspective, my own belief systems get involved. And I don't put meaning to them, I'm just observing. And so opening that third eye to the maximum, but we do have lots of um, fears programmed into us about opening that third eye and being able to remote view and being, able to take our consciousness and, will we leave the body? No, you can't ever leave the body until you die, unless you decide that that's actually what you want to do. Anyway, um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so what other fears do you have about seeing the unseen? Like, you want to have, we all, like, once it happens, it's like, oh my God, here I am, and I want more and more and more. But what other fears might you have about seeing the unseen, besides, monsters and the devil and those kinds of crazy program things?
I really feel like that's maybe like my only fear around it.
Hmm.
Because I don't feel like I have fear about it opening. I want it to open all the way.
Right, right.
But but it just, it's a process, and I maybe some of it is just not trusting myself 100% either.
Hmm. So if you see a alien, like literal, physical, like, and it manifests right before you, would you have fear about that?
No, I don't feel like I would. I'd just be like, "Hey, what's up? Tell me about your life."
Okay. Um, what if it shows up as like a monster looking thing? Because some of the alien
Then I
beings
probably would.
are not the, typical thing that we see, like the Octarians, or the, like the typical things that you see on Google. Not the majority
Yeah,
of the aliens that I see don't actually look like that. So,
I feel like it's more about like a sense of danger. that is
Mm,
my fear. Not necessarily the look. The That's what's coming in now, that I feel like I would be worried that I was in danger for some
okay.
reason, which is odd. I'm like, okay.
Well, no, because we need to feel safe, right? Like that's primarily why
Hmm.
90% of humanity doesn't open their third eye is because we have been told that it's unsafe to do so. So, of course, that would
That's
come into play.
exactly what it is.
Yeah, of course, that would come into
Yeah.
play, right? Like danger. God, am I going to be safe in opening my third eye? And what if I do see the unseens, right? Like, what if I actually do see that? Am I going to still be
Yeah.
safe? Yeah, that's the whole programming of
Yeah.
death. Death is not a safe experience, and that's that it all has to relate to that. So if that is the fear, and yeah, for most of us, that is the fear. Am I going to be safe if I do this? Um, so if I'm going to open my third eye, what is it that would create dangerous events for me? Like what makes you feel unsafe?
Hmm. I don't know.
Mm.
That's not a tough
So,
answer.
well, it could be. So it's just a conjured up belief system someplace.
Yeah, for sure.
Because people
For
who
sure.
use their third eye and communicate with aliens and all kinds of beings and can see fairies and like the other realms. So
Yeah.
that other people are doing it, right? But yet we still have these ingrained belief systems of, well, that's not safe. I'm sure you've heard it somewhere along in your life that, yeah, it's not safe to be like, or we relate it to witchery or to alchemy, or something that the mind does not understand the power of. And so that's where we feel like, oh gosh, am I going to be in danger? Am I going to be, that fear of not being in control, um, or not having control over the situation, when we're probably more in control of that than we are our daily human life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So how do I embrace that and get rid of that fear to help me open that up more?
practice, practice and
Okay.
balance, right? So when you had
Yep.
that migraine, like there was fear around there, and the balance wasn't there. The migraine brought back the balance though, because it released, the physicalness of it. It released the fear. And so, and you became a mad scientist and asked the questions to help move you through that energy. We get stuck when we
Yeah.
don't ask the right questions and when we play into the fear. That's where those that's where we become robotic, is when we stay stuck in the fears. So when we're looking at our own intuition and trying to dive deeper into it, it's all about the practice and bringing ourselves back to balance, and balancing needs to be part of the practice. So we practice a little bit at a time, right? So that we don't have these big traumatic experiences. And then the more you practice, the more you
Hmm.
become balanced in it. So the opening that third eye and being able to see the unseen doesn't hold the fear of it any longer, because the more you practice, the less fear you have about it, because you're moving through the energy of it versus staying stuck in the fear of, oh God, I might be in danger. Am I
Yeah.
really safe in doing these kinds of
Yeah.
practices? But that's where taking those baby steps becomes the practice every day, saying, okay, I want to see something new today in my third eye. you can put standards around it or
Okay.
boundaries around it if you feel like you need to. But every day saying, "Oh, I'm going to listen to my intuition today," and I want whatever. If you can manifest in a way of putting limitations around your what you want, dream, and desire, then go for it. I don't have that ability. The more limitations I put around it, the less experience I have. So for me, it has to be big, broad ideas and concepts. Like, I want to have an experience um, in seeing something that I've not seen before. That's a big, very big, broad and vast thing to ask for. But that's how I work as a being. So, how do you work as a being?
Honestly, I think I could do both. I don't like to limit myself, so I like the bigness, having the it be more broad better, just because I'm pretty good at manifesting like about anything. but
Mm-hmm.
um but I don't like to limit myself, because sometimes when you do, you're totally right. You don't get all of it.
Well, sometimes the limiting ourselves can make us feel safe. So if you say, okay, well,
Yeah.
I want to have an experience in intuition, and I want to see something, or third eye, I want to see something that I've never seen before. Will you feel safe in seeing it? And then, like if you do that throughout the
Yep.
day and then you don't see anything, that's where you set yourself up to fail because you didn't limit it enough so that the mind could grasp onto it.
Mm,
And it's right here in front of you or right next to you. You can sense something, but you actually don't have the experience, and then you say, see, I can't do this. That's that
gotcha. That makes a
self-sabotaging
lot of
practice.
sense.
So we have to,
Yep.
like, the limitations are here for us to feel safe. Knowing the boundaries
Which
of where
makes
you need
sense.
to, like, bring those up or tear them down, right? That's where you are right now.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. Honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, we've had multiple conversations about the whole third eye thing, and until today, I never really realized that the danger was my issue. And now it's just like, duh, Amber. Hello, I've been trying to tell you that.
We've talked about safety before. Well, that's just it. Like you've had the visceral experience of it, which for you I think is the changing of the DNA or the opening or the activation. Like there's some component
Yeah,
that that in your energy field says, yeah, I need to have some kind of a realization here. I need to make it real. And for me to make it real, I have to have the physical change. I need to feel it. I need to experience it, right? It's not right or wrong.
yep,
It's just how your energy works. For me, like, I
yep.
don't need the physicalness of it. Like, I'm very etheric in my energy field. I just need to have the knowing. And that's my experience. Like, that is the experience.
Yeah, everything makes so much more sense now. And yeah, everybody, it's about knowing your own energy and what works for
Hmm.
you. You know,
Exactly.
everybody's a little bit different. We all work a little different. Yeah,
And we do need to have that safety factor because this is not a safe world. I mean, we live
yeah,
in probably the most unsafe experience. Duality is the most unsafe experience anyone could ever have. And to open our own intuition or become the natural self, which is very intuitive, who's that God self, that numinous self that knows all, is all, wise, wise, but yet responsible with the wisdom. Um, that opening that up here is a huge, huge deal because we're not safe here. We've been limited
yeah,
so much in our abilities that we are not safe here. Now we're moving into bringing that back into some sort of balance, we need to feel safe in our own intuitive experiences, trusting our own consciousness, our own vibration, our own frequency. That's the experience that we're working through right now. And so yeah, we have to be able to feel safe. I mean, that's a thing. It's a real thing.
Today has been so eye opening.
Good. Awesome. All right. I think we covered the intuitive, like what's happening with us intuitively and why we need to open our intuition and listen to our intuition and know that it speaks to us in the same language and yet feel safe in doing so.
Yes.
So, yeah, practice and balance, practice and
Yes.
balance. Yeah. Well, thanks,
Yes.
Amber,
Thank
for
you so much for yes, thank you. We appreciate I appreciate it. Honestly, this is my favorite time of the week is when we get a chat. So, thank you for everything. Greatly appreciated from our soul to yours. Everybody have a super fantastic day.